So hello, my name's Rob and this is Cattle Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and in this video we're going to be making Grimnir very proud with these impressive orange beards. Now Fyreslayers are a great little faction. There's quite a lot you can do with them, but I have been getting a few questions about how I've been doing the lovely bright mohawks and beards, so in this video I thought I'd show you. It's pretty easy to do and it's got some really good techniques involved that as a hobbyist anyone can use. So without further ado, let's get started and make Sigmar a little bit jealous. So Fyreslayers, very iconic. I've never painted a Fyreslayer before until recently. My buddy Josh from Fyreslayers sent me the chosen axes and I've had a fantastic time painting them up. They come together really quickly, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do those iconic beards. Starting with an undercoat, I used Hyax Brown from Colourforge. The reason why I started from a darker undercoat is because it was just a little bit easier for me to kind of get those skin tones that I wanted. However, if you wanted an even brighter beard, I would probably recommend something like White Scar from Citadel, or like a Xandri Tusk, Mechanica Standard Grey, something mid-tony would work really well. And as you can see, I have already started base coating this, but I did leave one side blank to show you. I'm going to cover absolutely everything. As I said, there's some great techniques in here, but first we're just going to base coat Wild Rider Red. This goes on all the beard areas, obviously that's without saying. Take your time with this. It is a bit of a thin paint because it's a layer paint, so you just, what I would say, add a little bit of water so you get a nice smooth finish and build it up. I've skipped this step. I'm not going to show you me painting stuff. It's a little bit unnecessary. No one wants to see me doing 3 base coats of the same thing, waiting for it to dry. But there it is. This is probably the most important part, is giving yourself a really good solid foundation. The next thing we're going to do, and this can scare a few people, we're going to wet blend a little bit. Now I am going to be using Wild Rider Red again. I'm also going to be using this orange from Pro Acryl. Now if you don't have this colour, you can substitute it for Fire Dragon Bright, I believe the colour is. I did have it in front of me when I was recording this. Naturally I've misplaced it. That's typical me, but it is a pretty good match. Yes, it is Fire Dragon Bright. I've just found it. Don't worry which one you use, they're both going to give you the same effect. And the trick here when it comes to wet blending is to just err on the side of caution. I've done videos on wet blending before. They're older videos, the footage isn't as good, but the technique certainly does hold up. You only need a little bit of paint here. Literally, that's it. I've got this little subway tile that I use as a bit of a palette. Really handy to have. Lots of water. That's what we need. That's the trick here. The main thing when wet blending is to keep it wet. And wet blending is basically where we just blend 2 colours together while they are wet. There's no like science to it or anything like that. Don't be put off by trying this. It's really easy to do and really forgiving. Here you can see I'm just putting down the Pro Acryl. Neat. This orange, once again, I've done videos on orange. They're high in pigment, so they're very watery. That's why some people find it quite hard to work with them, because they don't cover so well. In this instance, it's going to work to our favour. And as you can see, just paint it all over your areas. I work a side at a time, but just make sure, and I'm only going up about halfway here, make sure the paint's on and it's wet. Then I'm going to go straight in. I haven't washed my brush out with the orange, and all I'm going to do is just feather it in. And then I'm just going to work back and forth over those sections, and I'm going to pull that wet Wild Rider Red, God that's a mouthful every time, into the orange, and the orange back into the Wild Rider Red, and it mixes while it's wet. That's all you're doing. You're putting 2 wet colours next to each other, and you're almost agitating the line where they meet to mix them together, and that's how you get a lovely smooth finish when you wet blend. As you can see, cup of tea. My God. The cat brought in a bird at this stage, a little wood pigeon I had to rescue. I completely forgot where I was in the video, but everything's now dry. What you can do, if you feel that your orange maybe isn't bright enough, you can do a couple of passes of the wet blending method and just get it to where you are happy with. But everything's dry, and the key is to make sure everything's dry. And the next thing is we're going to do some dry brushing. Again, a really easy skill. If you don't dry brush, it is super easy to do. I'm going to show you how to do it. I've actually come up with a little bit of a foolproof hack that I actually discovered while doing this. If you struggle with wet blending, stay tuned, there will be a video on that just a little bit later, just a little quick one. I just thought it was really helpful, quite handy to know. So I put a little bit on the brush, I go back to my subway tile, and I just work the paint into the bristles until it starts to, it stops looking wet and it starts to take the paint off the tile. Then all I'm going to do with my brush, really lightly, and I'm kind of using it at about a 45 degree here to make sure I catch those little ridges. I'm just going to flick it across the tops. What we've actually done now is we've gone from Wild Rider red to that orange to a nice bright yellow. Obviously here, I don't remember saying Flash Gets yellow. You can use something like Uriel yellow if you want to tone it down a little bit, but I'm going bright here. As you can see, that's what we've got. Now you probably could stop here if you wanted to. It looks good, we've caught the tops of the hairs. If you're going for speed, you might not want to do the next step, but what we are going to do is we're going to mix some shades together. But again, we're going to do it on the model, so I guess not wet blending, but we are going to make sure that the shades mix. Now I've got Fugan Orange and Carabur Crimson, and the idea is to deepen almost like the hairs where the mohawk comes from, and it's going to push that contrast on the top bit even higher. So what I do is I cover the whole thing in Fugan Orange, just literally all over. This is going to add a real nice, I guess, bit of saturation. So it's going to make our oranges even orangier, which is a real word, I can promise you. And just make sure you've got, and again, I'm working a side at a time here. Once it's all covered, again, I don't wash my brush. I go back to Carabur Crimson. And all I'm going to do is just where the hairs start to come out, I'm just going to run it just into these little bits here. And as you can see, I'm doing this weird little wiggling motion, just making sure everything mixes. Again, what this is going to do, the roots are going to look darker, and obviously because it starts off from a darker kind of like almost orangey red now, the tips where it's yellow look even brighter. So all we're doing is we're almost tricking the eye. As you can see, there it is. Again, if you wanted to, you could stop here. It looks great, but I'm going to go back to Flash Gets Yellow with my dry brush. Again, I'm going to remove all the excess on the brush using the subway tile, just till it's all nice and dry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm really lightly this time. You don't need much at all. You do need to make sure that your shade is completely dry though, and we're just going to flick it back and forth, just right at the very top of the mohawk. And that is really it. That's all there is to it. It's a really easy method to do. You could use this for things like Space Wolves. They have lovely luscious orange locks. Obviously your Fyreslayers. You could kind of mix this up, and if you're doing different coloured mohawks, the principle is the same. It's just the colours that change. And there we go. Fyreslayers. These iconic. I guess that the mohawks and the beards are a big focal point, so I wanted them to really pop and stand out. Here you can see I've done a slightly darker skinned Dwarduin, and with the, once again, cheating the eye, the darker skin makes the orange pop even more. These are great fun to do. I've been having an absolute blast with these. But that's it from me in this video. Just a quick one, because I know people have been asking. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Nearly forgot that. The bird was fine. I went to a bird sanctuary, for those that are wondering. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bird. God bless. Take care. That's all from me in this one. Bye-bye.